every year we see different trends at the Disruptor 50 list, and this one I think was the most exciting list ever, and not just because we had so many companies nominated, but we really saw this year venture-backed companies not just focusing on the gig economy or mobile apps, but really trying to tackle some of the world's biggest issues. We have companies on the list in transportation and logistics, the Internet of Things, and as we saw in this year's #1 company, Indigo, in safeguarding the world's food supply while also combating climate change. So some really interesting work in ag tech as well. We actually have the CEO of Indigo here tonight, and actually more than half of the Disruptor 50 companies from this year's list are here tonight, as well as leaders from past companies that have graduated by either going public or being sold. Now, I don't want to waste any more time before we bring up our special guests, and they really don't need introductions. They are truly disruptors in their own rights in the worlds of sports and beyond. Megan Rapinoe, of course, is a game-changing athlete, role model, activist, and entrepreneur, and Casey Wasserman is CEO and chairman of Wasserman, which is arguably the most powerful sports agency. He represents 1,800 athletes, including more than 150 of the best female athletes in the world. One, of course, is Megan Rapinoe. Now, Wasserman is also a powerhouse marketing agency tapping into the power of female athletes. And he is also chair of the Los Angeles 2028 Olympic Organizing Committee. He will be bringing the Olympics to my hometown of Los Angeles and back to the United States for the first time in 26 years. So we're very excited about that, using lots of technology, which we'll talk a bit about. Now, we're about to get started, but reminder, this is on the record. You can tweet #Disruptor50. It's at CNBC Disruptors on Twitter and Instagram, and we will be opening up for some questions. So start thinking about what they'll be, and we'll pass around the mic. So Megan and Casey, please come on up.
Hello.
Thank you both so much for being here. Before we talk about equal pay and the Olympics, I feel like we have to start with technology because we're here in San Francisco. And
just gonna throw screws.
Yeah.
Tweets and do something.
Well, that's really what it's about. You've become a viral sensation, and you're also able to speak directly to your fans because of technology. How do you think about your use of social media, and whether it's your iPhone or Twitter or whatever it is, to really amplify your voice?
Honestly, I probably think about social media too much. It's like this ever-present thing in our lives. I'm very thankful that I grew up and my brain matured when I didn't have social media. I think it would be a lot different. I'm thankful I came to it a little bit later, so I have a little bit more perspective on it. But it's an incredible tool. It really is. I mean, especially for athletes, in particular for female athletes who don't always have the platform, the money, or the stage, or in the big leagues, or whatever it may be. Not only to speak to fans directly, or whoever it may be, sort of the broader community, but to say exactly what we want to say. I think so oftentimes we're either being interviewed by someone, or at the sort of behest of a sponsor, or whatever it may be, and for us to have that platform for ourselves when oftentimes we don't have that, or traditionally we haven't had that, I think is really important for us. And then also I think I take a lighthearted approach to it. I try not to take it too seriously, try to be authentic with it. I try to enjoy it. Sometimes I'm like, I can't believe this is real life. It's like this made-up world that has real-life consequences. But, trying to be shifty with it and grow with it and try to use it to the best of our ability for everything, while at the same time not looking at comments and not taking it too seriously.
Not taking it too seriously. Yeah. Casey, you've really been able to work with your clients to make sure that their voice is amplified, their reach is amplified. I mean, I think it's interesting, you talked about being able to effectively broadcast directly to your fans without relying on broadcast TV rights. But Casey, tell us about the athlete exchange and this idea of what you're building a specific tool for this purpose.
Well, it starts with the premise that not all influencers are the same, and athletes are unique as influencers. They obviously have incredible reach, authenticity, and ability to connect with fans, consumers, the sort of the population. but that which they do for a living is not what they can actually create for content. So most influencers, what they do for a living is the content they create for distribution. Megan is one of the best football players, soccer players in the world. She can't do that for her followers outside of the context of the thing where she's not allowed to do it because the rights are controlled by someone else. So it's a kind of a unique conundrum. So the two things that we thought are opportunities for athletes are to create production to support, and by the way, not all athletes are as thoughtful and eloquent and have a voice as Megan.
Thank you, Casey.
And be able to capture media dollars for athletes. Because in the end, there's a lot more media dollars than brand dollars. And all our job is to do is to be able to help our clients get in front of those media dollars. So now we can go in the marketplace, respond to media insertion orders, respond to RFPs, and we can break it down by geography, by sport, by demographic, by economic status, whatever they want to do, and put together a group of athletes, a singular athlete, whatever it is, to capture media dollars which have been unattainable before, and it will create a lot more opportunity for the athletes. And it starts with our belief that non-endemic athlete marketing is far and few between at best. And so this is a great way to capture those non-endemic dollars and provide more value to the clients.
And so you created this thing called the Athlete Exchange that is sort of at the core of that.
Correct. It's an entity that we stood up and we invested in to support through production and have the know-how and the expertise to respond to the media orders so that they could actually deliver against that audience and the technology on our side to be able to segment the clients in their reach and the way they communicate and to whom they communicate.
So Megan, when you tweet, you're on Instagram, you're sharing these moments from your life. Like I remember watching you during the parade, and it felt so authentic and real. You feel like you're there with you in the celebratory parade. How do you think about being the person who's broadcasting to the fans? I mean, you don't control the soccer, right? So you're letting fans in a different way. How do you think about that relationship and why it's important to have that one-to-one relationship with your fans?
I think you really need to figure out what you want that relationship to be. I think for me as a person, I'm generally very open. I've always been that way. So it's natural for me to interact with the platform in a very open and natural way. I don't need to curate every single picture. Sometimes I post too fast. There's typos. And certainly during the parade, we were like, pose, 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 pose. But I think for us, and for me personally, I am very open and authentic. That's part of who I am. That's part of what I want to share. I want to give a real perspective. It's like if I'm going to use it, I might as well use it in the way that I would actually talk to someone. So I feel like I try to be authentic in that way. If we're having this conversation, it would be the same thing that I would tweet about or I would post about. And I think it is a really great way to say exactly what you want to say all the time. Sometimes you have to say what sponsors, what your collective creative is, or you're in a certain, media situation, or you're with your team or whatever. But sometimes it's nice to just go off the cuff and say exactly what you want to say about it. And I think to give that access to fans, something that they've really haven't had before, that can help build your personal brand, but also for us to help build the sport. I think it's been an instrumental tool in growing the game, not only here in the U.S., but worldwide. And you saw with the World Cup this summer, it was by far the best one we've ever had. Just in terms of people watching, just in terms of people watching, but also, knowing all of the athletes and all of the athletes all around the world, and getting to know their stories a little bit more, which really is what connects people to sports. Not, the majority of sports fans aren't hardcore sports fans in the nitty-gritty of the technical stuff. They want the stories, they want the storyline, they want to feel like they know you. And so to be able to have a platform to do that for us is really important.
You've had a huge impact in growing the popularity of soccer, but also in this conversation about equal pay. And I'm wondering if that was part of the plan. Was that part of your plan from the beginning, or did that just sort of evolve as you saw the platform you had and you saw the attention you were getting and the president was tweeting about you? I mean, how did that all come about?
Yeah, about me, that's one way to put it. Throughout the World Cup, you mean? How did that come about?
But so at what point did you decide that you were gonna speak out on equal pay and you were gonna make a change?
Oh, always. I mean, about anything. It's as soon as, it's obviously media is a tactic that we use. We have a lot of public support, but we try to use the media and use our platforms in very strategic ways. It's, for us, it's sort of all, gloves are off at this point. Like we have put up with a lot for all of these years. We've tried to go about it behind closed doors in a very open and honest and earnest way, and getting to a place where we feel like is equal. That clearly hasn't worked. So we're going to use every tactic we possibly have to get what we deserve and to set the game up better for the people that are coming after us. And I think as well to set an example for women in other industries, other teams. I mean, Australia just signed an unprecedented, world first equal pay with their men's team. The federation is just, that's incredible. Like we take a lot of pride in knowing that we had something to do with that. We would have really loved our federation to be the first in following us and being world champions, but can't have it all.
Casey, you've obviously supported Megan and her teammates. You represent a number of her teammates as well in their effort for equal pay. But I think it's also worth noting that you made this big announcement with this big initiative in July that you announced to help support female athletes with your work, and then you also had a nonprofit component to it. But tell us about this collective, this new division that's part of Wasserman, and how it helps. It aims to really elevate female athletes and help close those pay gaps.
So, first of all, and I said this to you before, shame on U.S. Soccer for forcing
shame.
They shouldn't be defending this position. It's an undefendable position for U.S. Soccer. This women's team is the model of excellence in every way, and they should be paid equally, and there should be no explanation for that. So it's gone on too long. So the collective really came out of something we already do, which was actually the nice part of it is we represent an incredible group of women athletes who are incredible athletes, incredible humans, but incredible athletes. And they need the recognition as athletes because they're on par with every male athlete in the world in every way. And then a little bit by fluke, we have a big brand business, and 9 of our 11 biggest clients have female CMOs. And we also wanted to look at ourselves, which is how are we doing as a company in terms of gender equality and pay equality. And we knew that we could take the incredible relationships we had with a group of clients across both brands and properties, elevate the conversation, invest in developing that next generation of executives in sports, frankly. So it wasn't just about getting money for clients. This is about moving the ball forward. It's not about us. We're happy to share it with all of our competitors. We would love everybody to dive into this. And it's taking advantage of this incredible group of clients, elevating the conversation. And what it has done is it has generated a lot of opportunity for sure, but it's also elevated these companies that we didn't even know exist. I mean, female entrepreneurs coming out of the woodwork to work with incredible groups of athletes, want mentorship from female CMOs at these big, large AT&T, Wells Fargo, American Express, all with incredible female CMOs, big clients of ours. So it's just sort of the ecosystem, obviously, and I gave a big donation to 3, foundations or charities focusing on this, and it's been really incredible. And as I say, look, we have to take a good look at ourselves. I think we're really proud of the diversity of our leadership team, but we can do better. And it really starts at the bottom, which is how do we create more opportunities so that over time, that it's just a numbers. Like I always tell people, we can go hire a great female executive or a great minority executive to check a box, and we're not going to do that. Because it's not the answer. The answer is not checking a box. The answer is changing the opportunity set. So how do we have, maybe this summer, which we're actually going to do, all of our interns are females? Like, that's cool, because guess what? 30% of our employees started as interns. So how do we just change the opportunity set? And it just came out of sort of the business we actually already do in a very authentic way.
Megan, you've been traveling all around the country ever since the World Cup. You've just been, it sounds like nonstop. We were hearing the sort of zigzagging across the country. And it seems like though you've been playing soccer for a while, this World Cup really was a tipping point in the conversation about equal pay. Where are you seeing the conversation go now, not just with soccer, but with other industries? And where do you want to see the conversation go?
I think we really are at a tipping point. And I think the most amazing thing that came out of this World Cup by far is we've given people a vehicle to talk about this. It's like an easy in. Sometimes it's awkward to talk about equal pay. If you're one of the only women in the office, or if you do feel like you're discriminated against, we're really lucky. We have 23 other women. We just march in there and we're like, we're talking about this, And it's difficult for us at times. We're in the middle of a crazy lawsuit. So I feel like we've given people a vehicle, or at least a starter, to talk about this. Hopefully, we will either reach a settlement or kick ass in court. And get equal pay and beyond that, and that can be a precedent not only in the courts, but just in general in the country and in society and in businesses moving forward, that other women can look to and hopefully spur on their fight. And I think just from a business perspective, investing in women is a good business decision, and equal pay is a good business decision. I think I've heard if equal pay was happening right now, it would add $4 billion to the economy or something. There's probably smarter people in the room who know those, but it would help the economy. It's we forget that women are people's wives and their mothers and their sisters and all of these things. It's not this thing that you can really parse out outside of the whole ecosystem. So hopefully businesses and companies are starting to realize that investing in women is actually a great business decision. It's not just the social impact. It's not just the right thing to do. While it is all of that, it's also just an opportunity to make money.
You have not been afraid to be political in your commentary, in your tweets, in your voice, and I'm wondering how we live in a time where sometimes people have been punished for that. We're seeing with the NBA and the comments about China and the Hong Kong protests. We've seen, Colin Kaepernick, who you've spoken out about, as an inspiration for you. And I'm wondering how you walk that line. I mean, your career has not been damaged by having a political voice, but that's something that you must think about with your clients and you must be aware of. How do you figure out how to have a voice and how to be political and true to yourself without having it have negative implications on your athletic career?
I don't walk the line. And I don't think about the negative implications. Everything that I do, comes from a very thoughtful place, but it comes from the heart and from what I feel like is necessary in the world, and it's always with good intention. So I think that's at the heart of it. I think with my support of Colin Kaepernick, there was a lot of negative backlash for that, or white lash is probably a better way to describe that. I wasn't dropped by any sponsors, but I certainly wasn't picking up a lot of new ones either. And now it's 2 years kind of on from that. I just was at the Glamour Awards and spoke about this. I think that my white privilege is proving itself right now, that I'm sort of back with a vengeance in full force, and Colin is, barely getting a tryout, this random tryout, which, by the way, everyone's sort of skeptical about. We'll watch this space, but I try to do all of it with the best of intentions while realizing the privilege that I have, and with that, I feel like comes a responsibility to use the platform that I have, not only to talk about things that affect me, whether it's equal pay or LGBTQ rights, but also if I'm asking people to be an ally for me, then I have to do that in return. And for me, it's all the same thing, whether we're talking about LGBTQ rights, immigrants' rights, police brutality against people of color, equal pay. It's all really the same exact thing. So I feel like as long as I come at it from a genuine place and with the best of intentions, I don't worry about the lines that I'm walking on, and I have, an incredible support team around me, friends, family, obviously the agency that I work with. They'd probably like to know a little bit further in advance when I'm doing things, but sometimes I don't know either, so we just have to roll with it. But I think walking the line, especially now, can be a pretty dangerous game. Trying to do both things, trying to say both things, trying to not piss off people. And it's that's really just follow your heart and be educated on your opinions and be true to yourself. And I feel like that's kind of my philosophy.
How do you advise your NBA players and whether they should be weighing in or how they should weigh in on the Hong Kong protests, or your NFL players?
So I agree with Megan. You can't walk the line. You have to be authentic. You also have to be aware. I mean, I think part of the problem with Daryl Morey is I'm not sure he knew what he was doing when he did it. But look, he said what he said. Now, ironically, the Chinese censor, there's no Twitter in China. So he said on a platform that in theory no one's seeing. So it's a kind of a bizarre thing that's what they got so upset about. And the group he was supporting is like the most moderate of those groups. I mean, it was kind of a crazy thing. And by the way, they have to take the approach they did the Chinese government because they can't just let him say that. But are they taking the games off the air? I don't believe that. I don't believe they ever will. And by the way, Adam Silver, he's not going to suspend people or fine people for saying bad things about the current president of the United States. He can't do it for saying the president of China. So what else he did exactly what he should do in that situation. And if they, as he said, if we lose 100% of our business, we'll deal with it. That's fine. That's our job, is to do that. And so I just want our athletes to be authentic because inauthenticity is the worst thing. And I want them to talk from a position of knowledge, and I want them to be engaged in the issues, whichever side they're on. And believe me, I'm liberal, we have right-wing athlete, like there's all over the place. I just want them to be, if they want to talk, they need to be prepared for what they're going to say. Megan is thoughtful and understands. Maybe she wasn't prepared for some of the President of the United States reacting the way he did, but none of us are. That's a different issue.
It was quite amusing.
It was cool. I actually woke up, I was all excited.
It was like in real-time glitch out completely. I was like, so does he want us to win and come? No, he doesn't. Okay. But you kind of like me, don't you? But you don't. Okay. Got it.
But the only thing we tell people, just know what you're talking about when you talk about it. So be authentic. And by the way, don't be afraid to say, you know what, I don't actually know. Because I think people get sucked into this conversation. It's okay to say, I'm not comfortable, I don't know. That's an okay position too.
So speaking about authentic, you work with a number of brands. Obviously, you want to find ones that are a good fit. But how do you think about finding the right brands to work with? And also, you're building your own brand, a fashion brand. How are you balancing all of those things?
With a lot of help. So I'm balancing it all. I think as I've gotten older, I've understood how better to insert myself into the creative process with brands.
So you're working with Luna Bar?
Yep, working with Luna Bar and Cliff Bar, amazing company, so committed to equality and sustainability, and really kind of building, from the very first employee all the way up to the top with the two owners of the company. A really meaningful brand that takes care of people first and that cares about people first and then goes from there. But yeah, as I've gotten older, I like to be a part of the creative process. Maybe I just fancy myself in that space and all the creatives are like, get out of here. But I think the more that you can get athletes involved, especially athletes who want to be involved, the better the product you're going to get, the better commercial you're going to get, or the brand you're going to get, or whatever it is. If an athlete is into it, you can kind of tell if it's like just a money grab. And sometimes that's okay. I'm not opposed to a money grab, especially as a female athlete. Sometimes we got to just take it where we can get it. But I feel like the more you can interact with the brand, even if it's something funny, like I just did a thing with Charmin. It's like, everybody uses toilet paper, right? I mean, it's like you do multiple times a day. Like every single day, everybody uses toilet paper. So how do you be authentic in that space? And I think it's okay to interact with brands that way. It's okay to, some people might say it's like selling out, but it's like this is kind of the world we live in. We interact with brands all the time, especially as a public person or an athlete. In that sense. So I try to, again, not take it too seriously, but it's like when you come on with me, I want me to come out in the product. I don't want to just be like holding up some like weird thing and just like, you might as well put it over my face if I'm not involved in the creative process. But
you're also building a fashion brand. So tell us a little bit about why you're doing that and where you see that going.
Excuse me. So basically the genesis of it all was we've, knock it out of the park, 2015, crush the World Cup. It's the most watched game ever. Amazing. And kind of almost instantly, there was this feeling like, oh, we're really not prepared to capture a lot of this upside. A lot of other people are, and they're having a grand old time with all of this attention and money and everything. And we were kind of like, we don't really, as a team, have like a structure to capture it all. We're really not participating equally in all of the benefits that have that. So it's actually Megan Klingenberg's idea originally, who was a member of the 2015 team. fast forward 4 years later, starting a company with everybody on the team would be a complete disaster, obviously. Starting a company with sometimes 2 people or only just 1 person is a disaster. So there's 4 of us. It seems to be going okay now. But we wanted to, be able to have a structure and a system in place for us to be creative, for us to bring our full selves to the public. Oftentimes we're, like I was saying before, it's either through the lens of a sponsor or the national team or Nike or whatever it may be. And we don't really feel like we've been able to be fully seen in the way that we want to in brand building and building a business. And all of us are into fashion and kind of just wanted more out of it and felt like we had so much more to give. So our first kind of foray will be into fashion. We're definitely looking to have silos in many different areas, whether it be tech or wellness, but starting in fashion to start. And we're excited about it. It's been like anybody who's ever participated in a startup, it's insane. It's like you know nothing. And then every day you learn a million things new and you do a million things wrong and you just try to get it right. But we feel like it's been such an expanding process for us. It's challenged us in so many ways. It's brought so much more out of us than we really ever knew. Like Tobin designed pretty much down to every detail the entire line, the entire sweatsuit. Meg is our kind of little financial guru and our business guru. Kristen is our CEO and just is a total boss. I'm like, I need you to just be like CEO of my life. This is insane. And me much more on the brand side and brand building and vision and mission and all of that. So we just kind of like wanted to do more and be a little bit more and kind of have something that's our own.